Hello and welcome to The Rest is Football with me, Gary Lineker, and this guy, Alan Shearer. We've got a special question and answer episode for you today that is sponsored by our friends at Walkers. Walkers, Alan?
A question from Rob Stanley. Gary, how long have you been working for Walkers?
It'll be 30 years in January.
Is that what it is? 30 years?
I did it when I came back from Japan. It was a welcome home advert, which I went to do in Leicester. And it was quite funny, actually. I did a 3-day shoot, and it was all filmed around the town centre. And I did this one thing outside the station. And you can imagine it was starting to get busy, and people, I had a couple of hundred people probably watching. And I'm about to do this take, where I had to walk through next to a barber's shop or something. This little old lady she came up to me, she tapped me on the shoulder, she said, "You're Gary, aren't you?" And I went, "Yeah, that's right." She said, "What's going on here? Are they expecting someone special?" Put me in my place.
Sorry to disappoint you.
Just me, I'm afraid. So I'm 30 years with them now.
Wow. That must be one of the longest ones ever around,
I think it's the longest
impressive
so-called celebrity endorsement ever, well, it's all about Walkers, this particular episode, and they are giving back to the fans with their No Walkers, No Game promotion. That's right, the limited edition bags of Salt and Lineker are making a return, quite rightly so, and give people the chance to win 500 quid as well every 90 minutes. Don't you worry though, Alan, I didn't want you to be left out.
Okay.
So Walkers have come up with this little beauty.
Hey, Smokey Shearer.
Yeah.
Look at that. How did they know? When I was right up until I was 15, until I left to go and start my career down in Southampton, all my family used to call me Smokey, because I used to have that many smoky bacon crisps. That's what they called me. My nana, my granddad, my mum and dad.
I don't think they knew that. I think that's... Well, maybe
if they did, then they've certainly done their homework well. So there you go. Look at that.
Smokey Shearer. Bring them back. Bring them out. Absolutely fantastic.
Love it.
Well, I didn't want my good friend and fellow co-host feeling left out before the big match at Wembley. So there you have it. And don't forget the limited edition bags of Salt and Lineker. These little beauties, got those as well. Give you the chance to win £500 every 90 minutes. Look out for them now.
Hello and welcome to The Rest is Football with me, Gary Lineker, and just Alan Shearer this week. Mike is still on his travels with League of Their Own. We've hardly heard from him, actually. I'm slightly worried or concerned that he's...
Can someone check on him?
Where's Micah? I hope he's all right. He's on a road trip, though, so hopefully all is going well. We've got some great questions again, Alan. Let's crack on. Luke, for you both, there have been talks about moving Premier League games abroad to the US, etc. Removing so many fixtures from a team's home stadium advantage surely is an issue. I understand money will no doubt be the factor. How would you see that potential move if it was to happen? I'm not sure there's lots of games would move abroad, but there certainly are rumours and talk of one or two. Do you want to go first?
I think it'll happen. I think it's inevitable at some stage. I mean, it's ironic, isn't it, that clubs and managers and everyone else moan about too many games and too much travelling and all of that. But I think it's inevitable that it will happen because of teams having to make more money to try and keep up, basically, don't you?
I think there's a danger it might happen. I'd be massively against it. To be perfectly honest, all sorts of different reasons. I can't see how you can make it fair. If, depending on how many teams go, do you all go? And this is the 10 once each that you go. In which case, which team loses a home match, and which doesn't. I think there'll be all sorts of problems around it. I can't see any advantages other than you trying to promote your league somewhere else to get more money in a league that's already incredibly rich. Obviously, we've got things we have to look at nowadays like climate change, and it's just more private jets flying to all parts of the world. I don't see an advantage really, other than a few extra quid for them probably. But again, will they take into consideration the thoughts of the fans? We saw it with the Super League, didn't we? And ultimately, the fans do have power, as they showed with the demonstrations immediately coming out against it. This would obviously not have quite the gravity of that situation, but at the same time, it's once again, it's disregarding your fans, isn't it, Alan?
No, absolutely, yeah. You take. I mean, I know there's fans all over the world. I mean, I got shouted down last week for criticising Newcastle's trip to Australia this week. There's a lot of Australian fans came on, but we want to see Newcastle. We live over here and we support Newcastle. We never get the opportunity to see that, so I understand it from that point of view. But the Premier League is in England, and I know you guys support it, and I know that we need all the support all around the world. But there's a lot of complications going with taking a Premier League game abroad. It's, I mean, yeah, there's so many. I mean, you've listed a few there. But you're right. I mean, who loses the home game or whatever it is, you know what? Yeah, it's. But I do think there's a really good chance that it could happen.
I want to ask a couple of questions about managers that have come in. One from David Metherell. If you were Kieran McKenna, would you choose to stay at Ipswich or move to Chelsea/Brighton? He's probably read the rumours that Kieran McKenna's top of or favourite for the jobs at Chelsea or Brighton. It's an interesting question, isn't it? Because Kieran McKenna's done an extraordinarily good job at Ipswich, and if you look at Ipswich now, having had a double promote, it's hard enough just getting promoted from the Championship into the Premier League, but having followed it with the promotion from League One, you'd look at it and go, crikey, they're going to really have to strengthen to have a chance, because they'll still have a lot of probably League One players in that squad. But at the same time, he's the one who's brought them up, and now does he ditch them when it's their chance in the limelight? So I would imagine it's one for us. We'd probably go, wow, he should stay and see how he goes with Ipswich. But at the same time, from his career perspective, as we saw with the talking about young up-and-coming managers, obviously Vincent Kompany took Burnley up and then went down. So, although it doesn't look like it's affecting his career at all. Thoughts, Alan?
I was at the league managers do the other night in London, and he was rightly so given the manager of the year for what he's done and for what he's achieved at Ipswich. I'd think very, very carefully if I was him, and I'd be very, very wary. I think he's at a football club where it works for him at this moment in time. It couldn't have gone any better for him the last 2 years. I mean, back-to-back promotions. We saw what happened to Graham Potter. I know financially it would be great for him. We saw what happened to Graham Potter at Chelsea. We've just witnessed Pochettino getting Chelsea into 6th, which was an unbelievable achievement, and to a final, and to a semi, and then getting sacked. I'm not sure that Chelsea would be the right club for an up-and-coming manager to go and learn and progress and all of that. And then Brighton's a unique football club, and Brighton's run in a way that's been very successful for the owners. They have the model that works for them. I'd be very wary if I was him in moving, particularly to either of those two football clubs.
He has been linked this morning. We're doing this on Friday morning, so it's a few days behind. We normally do the question episode because of movements, etc., and the FA Cup coming up. So there's a story just breaking now that Manchester United are also interested, which sort of makes sense because he was obviously there, wasn't he, as part of the backroom staff.
Yep.
A few years ago. Funnily enough, I bumped into Harry Maguire a year ago, almost to the day, because I did a Marcus Rashford interview for the FA Cup final a year ago. And I bumped into Harry. Well, actually, Harry Maguire came over to say hello because obviously he was a former Leicester player. And at that time, Leicester didn't have a manager. And we were kind of debating who they should go for, and he said they should definitely go for Kieran McKenna, who just got Ipswich promoted from League One. He said he's the best coach I've worked for, which is really interesting, and he's subsequently been proved right. I believe Leicester might have tried. I think he turned them down, but I might be wrong on that. So it will be interesting to see. He doesn't have to rush. He's young.
He's done a great job. He's very early into his management career. He won't be short of offers. I mean, if he were to keep Ipswich up, that would arguably be as great as achievement as the double promotions. You know, I mean, I would imagine because of their budget, it would be incredible if he were to keep them into the Premier League.
He could win the league, Alan. He could go on and win the Premier League because look, Leicester were in League One, got promoted from League One to the Championship, didn't quite make it the next season, and then got up into the Premier League. Then they just stayed up, and then they won the league. So,
what you been drinking?
Just a coffee.
If they stay up, it would be an unbelievable achievement from them. So I would be very, very wary about leaving that job at this moment in time if I were him.
It leads me on to another question from Alistair Campbell. Yes, Alistair Campbell of the Rest is Politics fame, our sister podcast. He does send quite a few questions in, Alistair. But this one, I think I know an answer to it. Can you think of any precedent for a manager getting relegated from one major league and within days moving to one of the biggest clubs in the world in another major league? Well, I can't think of one in another major league, but I can think of one that happened in the Premier League, which would be Roberto Martinez got relegated with Wigan the season they won the FA Cup against Manchester City, didn't they? And then within 2 weeks signed for Everton. Now I know it's not another major league, but it is a major football club, and so it's not quite a right answer to Alice's question. I think it'd be very difficult to think of another one, but he's obviously talking about Vincent Kompany here. Obviously, when this goes out on Wednesday, it's 4 or 5 days after we answered this, so he might have signed, possibly for Bayern Munich, as is heavily rumoured that they're in contract talks, which I suspect are true. So it's probably happened. If not, ignore this. So, I mean, I was surprised. I mean, that to go from a club that that have gone down, it'd be an incredible break for Vincent.
Oh, massive.
Yeah.
Look, he done an amazing job, didn't he, when he got Burnley promoted and played some great football. But the way they were relegated this year, and after the money he spent in the recruitment of a lot of players, and I mean his decision not to move away from his philosophy at all, when clearly it wasn't working at all in the Premier League. It never really worked. It wasn't once this season that I thought Burnley were going to stay up.
That one patch, didn't
Not
they,
once.
just before the end of the season, where they only lost 1 in 8.
Still, were you ever confident they were going to stay up? I was
only
never
at the
confident.
start of the season.
I know he's got his style of football.
I thought they would, as we all did.
Yeah, unlike Micah, who had them tipped to finish mid-table. Yeah, I'm really surprised. Other than you, I mean the Roberto one, I can't think of any other where it's gone so badly wrong.
But even then, with the Martinez one, Alan, he did win the FA Cup. Obviously,
that's right. City, and I don't suspect he had that budget either with Wigan. I may be wrong, but Burnley have spent the right few quid in trying to stay in the Premier League, and it went spectacularly wrong. But I'm really surprised.
Okay, Bayern Munich though, it's for them it's a bold appointment, and they've obviously liked the way he plays football.
Yeah, but they've tried 4 or 5 other managers. They tried to get Tuchel to stay, didn't they? They've tried to get a few in there, so he realises, but that won't bother him. I mean, you can understand him wanting to join that football club, and it's a huge football club, so you can't blame him for wanting to do that. But then again, he is probably 4th or 5th choice.
Possibly, yes, possibly. Who knows? Who knows with these things? D. Curran says, Ian Wright bowed out of Match of the Day last week. He recently revealed he has a tattoo paying tribute to Alan and Gary. Has anyone on the panel, there's only us two today, got a similar tribute to a former player teammate, whether it's a tattoo, something they carry around, or a memento on display at home? Well, I think Mike has got a couple of burn marks from the fireworks he set off, Balotelli set off in his house. No, he doesn't. That's not true. I've actually got a tattoo on my backside, 1990, shat on the pitch. No, I
What you got on left cheek or right cheek?
That's quite a lot of words.
You have got a big arsehole, so it's all right.
Well, there you go. You got to have as a striker, you need a bit of a backside, don't you? Al? You got to back in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Back it in. Yeah, correct.
I don't know of any other. I mean, Wright is right. I mean, it's so lovely that he's got that 8, 9, 10 on his kind of on his wrist there. But
yeah.
Can you think of that?
It was a lovely send off that he got on Match of the Day last weekend, though, wasn't it? Yeah.
And I thought that the montage they made of it, and I think when his grandkids came, he kind of went a bit, didn't he? Bless him.
He did, yeah. You could see his little lip.
I was struggling
going,
myself actually with watching him go. I was thinking, at the end I have to kind of do about a minute closing with the Premier League tables, but I got through the first sentence. I was fine because I'm a big softie.
Yeah, no tattoos for me.
Micah, I don't think Micah's got any tattoos, has he? I don't think so. I've never seen one unless he's got one hidden somewhere. Got Big Meeks written on something.
He's just got a cock tattooed on his forehead because he's a dickhead.
Oh, that's harsh when he's not here to defend himself.
Sorry, Micah. I love you, really. You know
that. Right. Liam Jackson. England are down with 10 minutes to go in a crucial Euros game. Who would you use as super subs who could turn it around? Well, the problem with that question, of course, Liam, is that we don't know what the starting lineup is yet, so we don't know who's going to be on the bench. But I think the one thing Gareth has got with this particular squad is certainly in forward positions, which is what you need when you're a goal down, is massive strength in depth.
Oh yeah, I mean, and also it's like we've all been in these penalty shootouts that you might have your 5 or 6 that you want to take, but very rarely are the 5 or 6 that you want to take on the pitch at the come when the penalties. Do you know what I mean? I mean, Beckham got sent off in '98. I suspect he would have been on a penalty for us. I mean, substitutions.
Gazza in '90 was supposed to take a penalty, but he wasn't. After what happened to him getting a second yellow card, he wasn't in a reliable state to take one.
But also, I think if you look back to experience, if I remember rightly, when England were at Wembley, in terms of bringing the 2 boys on,
penalties,
like to take penalties with like a minute to go. To go onto a pitch and take a kick of that importance without having a touch of a ball, it's like, I think hopefully we might learn from that experience as well.
That did backfire. I did think that was quite an extraordinary decision, but I mean, sometimes, Gareth gets labelled cautious. That was anything but cautious, wasn't it? I mean, it was bold.
No, absolutely, yeah.
Ultimately, it didn't work because they both missed. So I think it's hard to come on for 1 minute and then suddenly you're involved in
just a bit.
I suppose it's not even the same as getting a penalty in the first minute of the game either, is it? If you've because people say, well, you score goals after a minute sometimes. But it's different as a substitute, isn't it? Because you're not really properly warmed up. You can't warm up for 20 minutes.
Yeah, to come into that environment,
pressure as well.
And after 30 seconds or a minute, and get your mind focused onto taking a kick of that importance is, that's a big ask.
Yes, absolutely. Jack Goodwin, was there a rule change in the 90s which dramatically changed the game as VAR has in today's football? Well, there's never anything been the scope of VAR. But while we're on the rule change thing, there's the new offside thing, possibly coming in from Arsene Wenger.
Did I read it right in terms of it's going to have to be daylight? Is that right?
Well, it's not so much daylight because it's basically the back part of you as the forward. As if any part of you is behind the defender, then you're onside. So basically, it's not going to help in terms of working out whether you're offside or not in the slightest. All he's doing is shifting it a yard further. I mean, I was part of a panel when this was discussed with Arsene Wenger. And I had my doubts at the time. I said I worry that teams will defend very deep now because it's particularly on free kicks and stuff. If you've got a line and all the players can, all you've got to do is keep your toe slightly onside. So I can see problems with it. Teams will adapt, but my fear is we'll get more low blocks, which is not what we want.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we might get a load more goals from free kicks, but I think the glory of football, the beauty of football, is the value of a goal. So that's what makes that explosion of joy and emotion when your team scores so important. But if there's a load more goals, then would that take anything away? I mean, I remember at that meeting, I said, Arsene, I mean, this seems like, I don't know, it just seems like doing something for something's sake. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with the offside law. It's just the VAR thing, and we're measuring down from arms and shoulders. You should maybe just make it just feet. But I said that one good rule change you could actually make that would make a difference to the game is the allowance of players to take free kicks as quickly as they possibly can. Stops that professional foul nonsense in the middle of the pitch. You just get it, touch it, you can pass it to yourself and carry on playing. But anyway, I was ignored.
I think the handball laws, it needs changing more than anything. I'm just trying to think of a law that, or a rule that changed in, I mean, late 80s, early 90s, 1 substitution. Then I guess you go to 3. Is it like that? I think that was a big change, wasn't it?
Pass back to goalkeepers that came in right at the end of my career. I was absolutely gutted when that came in, for the reason that I wanted it to have come in 15 years earlier. I mean, you play against Liverpool, Hansen and Lawrenson across the back, back to each other, back to each other, back to each other. You're doing that, and then they give it to the goalkeeper after you've done doggies chasing them down. So I used to do. When that law came in, I thought, ooh, goalkeepers can't pick it up anymore. That'll make a bit of a difference. But that was a bit too late. Really, it's been. I think the clamp down on players just being allowed to boot people up. Not that you were allowed, but the kind of way more yellow cards as soon as for any kind of aggressive foul on, which would have helped. That was another thing that came after I'd finished. And you, Alan, we used to get whacked and whacked and whacked, didn't you? Which you can't do now.
Well, you were allowed a free hit. Any centre half was allowed a free hit before you even got a warning, wasn't it? You could scythe someone down, and then you might get a little bit of a telling off, but not a yellow card. Maybe on your second or third one you would, but yeah, that was been a big change.
I remember playing for England in Russia, and I was kicked from the first minute to the 90th minute by this guy. He just booted. Honestly, it was savage. One after another, and I kept looking at the ref and, Christ almighty, are you ever going to give this? He gave the geezer a yellow card in the 91st minute. I mean, I ask you. Louise, she says, please can you tell us on the pod how the VAR vote is agreed by the club? Is it the board, the squad, or the manager of the PL team that votes? Will anyone be asking fans? A little bit like we said earlier in terms of a game playing abroad. They never ask the fans, do they? I guess it comes from club owners, doesn't it? 14 votes they need to...
Yeah, it's mostly club owners or chief executives or whoever it is that. I mean, I would imagine they'll seek the manager's opinion, but it'll be their opinion that goes forward.
I wonder if the new administrator that's coming in to football will have a view on clubs playing abroad, because there's part of that job is to look after the interests of football fans. I know it's going back to the first question that we had, but it just came into my head there. Yeah, see what powers they have, how much influence they can possibly have. We shall see. Andrew Murphy, he obviously knew Micah wasn't coming on this week. Would you rather win the Golden Boot in a Euros winning team, or having not played a minute all tournament, come off the bench and score a last-minute winner in the final? As someone who's won the European Championship Golden Boot, Alan, would you have swapped that for... Although it didn't say whether you would win it... Oh no! It said it Golden Boot in the Euros winning team. Well, you'd take that, wouldn't you?
In the Golden Boot in the winning team, so you get both.
Well, you can. I think he should have said it in a Euros team that didn't quite win it, or come off the bench and score a last-minute winner in the final. I think scoring a last-minute winner in the final would probably usurp that.
Absolutely, yeah.
You'd have to take although for 95.9% of that season, of that particular tournament, you'd be completely pissed off. But if you were left on the bench,
but you could dine out on that for the rest of your life, scoring the winner in the last minute. That would do. You'd have to pick that.
Yeah, I would say so. Kev Parr. Is a team with Maguire and Pickford as first choice right to consider itself as a favourite for a tournament? Based on this, should we be trying to outscore opposition, or, as in previous efforts, keep it tight by protecting a weak back four? Well, I think he's firstly been a bit harsh on both Harry Maguire and Jordan Pickford. We both put Pickford in our team of the season. Some people didn't agree with us, but that's fine. Understandably so in some ways. But I think Pickford has always been excellent for England. I think Harry Maguire has certainly never let his country down. So no team in world football, in international football, ever has, well, there might be the odd exception in history, but has 11 world-class players.
There's no doubt our back four is our weakness. When you look at the rest of our midfield and forwards, so there's no doubt there, brilliant strengths. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we're not perfect, but France are not perfect. No. They've got a really, really good team, but
they've got weaknesses.
They're not perfect. So yeah, exactly. That wouldn't bother me too much. We're not perfect like many others, but it wouldn't take anything away from me saying that I definitely think this is a great opportunity for us to win it.
I've got one from Hat, H-A-T-T. Best nickname you've ever had for yourself or a fellow player? Ours was a centre-back called Foreskin because he always disappeared when things got hard. Yes, Hat.
I love it.
That's a hat trick.
Brilliant.
I think that one. Superb. That is clever.
That's
I think
brilliant.
I might have mentioned it before, way back, where my favourite nickname was Justin Edinburgh, who I played with at Tottenham, and sadly is no longer with us. His nickname was Dal Mahoy, because it's just in Edinburgh. And I'm pretty sure Gazza came up with that.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I'm not sure I can beat either of those two, to be honest. Foreskin and Dal Mahoy. That's absolutely sensational.
There was the Fitz Hall, wasn't there, the player? It was called One Size. One size fits all. I remember that.
That's brilliant. I just trying to remember some of the ones at Newcastle. Jonathan Woodgate, we used to call him the llama because he had a bit of a long face. Shea Blockhead because he's got a massive head.
Talking about long face one, the one time I got in a bit of controversy. Well, not the one time. There's been a few times over the years, but in terms of something I said on telly. Can you remember Ruud van Nistelrooy had a kind of like long, and I said in Match of the Day, those post-match interviews that we show just before we come to analysis. He came on, and on this particular shot, it just looked like almost like a head of a horse, and they just won a game, and he didn't seem very happy. So I just said, "Come on, Ruud, why the long face?" And I got so much stick from Man United. Honestly. I didn't. I apologise, but it was.
We used to call Nikos Dabizas the Kaiser because he wasn't very good with the ball. Yeah, I definitely can't beat Dal Mahoy or Foreskin. Those are brilliant, man. Foreskin's fucking brilliant. I love it. He
always disappeared when things got hard. Oh, crikey. Ricky Spanish. Can a striker actually improve their ball striking, or is it all natural? Take someone like Gabriel Jesus, for example. People always talk about how he'd be a great striker if he could strike the ball more consistently, but can it really be improved? Well, yes, everything can be improved by practice, can't it? But also, I think you have to take into account a natural talent as well. So it's a bit of both, isn't it, Alan?
I agree. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. There's definitely something that you're given or born with, but there's no doubt about it. Also, you can improve everything.
Look at someone like, say, Ollie Watkins. What is he, 28, 29 now, I think? And he's come on. You can see a considerable improvement in his finishing, and his goal scoring numbers back that up.
100%. You can always improve, even if it's just a tiny bit. You can improve. It might make all the difference.
I mean, the one thing I always wanted to do in training, I didn't really enjoy training most of my career because it was all five. I didn't really love five-a-sides. I thought they were kind of pointless, and the goals are too small. And I didn't mind the running side of things and getting fit. I didn't enjoy it, but I felt I was getting something out of it. But I don't know about you, and I think we've had this conversation. I think you're the same. I loved training when it was finishing. But at the same time, the annoying thing about training with finishing was you just want the strikers to do it. You don't want everybody doing it. And you have to wait 10 minutes for a shot, don't you? So in the end, when I was old enough and more mature and brave enough to go to the manager and say, is it okay if I miss this and just go away, practice my finishing for half an hour with a goalkeeper or two? And Terry Venables let me do it towards the end. And loved it.
Yeah.
Loved
you can improve. Definitely improve everything.
Yeah, definitely. Vix, would Gary and Alan swap their careers to play in the modern football 2010 onwards? Not just because of the huge amount of money the likes of Big Meeks have accrued, but also because of the vast improvements in tech, pitches and analysis. If yes, which club would you play for? I'd swap because I'd be young again.
The only reason you'd swap is for financials. I mean, I thought my era was amazing and the battles we had and everything else and the great crack that we could have and all of those things. So, and I know the football, the pitches and the sports science and all of that stuff is a million times better now, but you'd only swap it for financially, really, wouldn't you? I mean, can you imagine the salary you'd be on now?
Oh, don't, because I get grief here from people.
Instead of your 160 quid a week that you were earning, you'd be on 300 or 400 grand a week now, wouldn't you?
A bit more, I think now. I think there are a couple of things that I'd be not envious but enjoy more. The playing surfaces, unquestionably, and the attire, the lightness of the football boots that they wear now, the quality of the footballs, that kind of thing would be so much easier. Finishing would be so much easier than it was when we played in the mud and the mire. And then the other thing I would say is that in international football, you'd score so many more goals because you do play against countries. Not that would excite you that much, but it would as a striker. You look at the games.
I suppose. I mean, I was unlucky with the injuries as well. When there's no way I think nowadays I would have the 3 serious injuries that I had back then, because everything most things is preventable now, isn't it? That's the one thing I'd look back and think, okay, I'd have had an extra 2 or 3 years playing.
The only thing that would worry you is that if we didn't have the quality of career that you had before, because there'd be no guarantees if you started again, I suppose. Although I would fancy my chances. She also said, which club would you play for? And we'll finish on that note.
Man City, only for the number of chances they create, not because I'm a huge fan of Man City Football Club. I just think with the chances that Pep creates and with De Bruyne and Foden and all those unbelievable players.
Yeah, it'd be hard to disagree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Alan. We're going to review the 20 clubs and have a little look at the finishing positions in our next podcast on Friday. So until then, goodbye from me.
Cheers, goodbye from me.